It's a delight to be with you today, friend. We, Dr. Keyes and I spent about 90 minutes together in comfortable interview setting discussing a wide variety of issues. But it was particularly helpful to hear his perspective on inalienable rights. That these rights come to us from God. And for many of us, it's a phrase. It's almost a throwaway phrase. But Dr. Keyes spends a good bit of time on today's program explaining the direct connection between creation, the creation of man, and our inalienable rights, and what role government plays under God concerning our rights. Hope you enjoy the show.
At one level,
where did it go wrong?
Where did the religious
right go wrong?
At the beginning, because the beginning is more than half the whole. And when I say the word beginning, one shouldn't think of the start in time. One thinks of that premise or principle from which your action arises and which determines the goal or purpose toward which you go. The Greeks called it telos, I think, and it basically refers to that which is your motive in terms of your aim, and that which defines your end point.
I'm going to guess if you're going to say the beginning, then I'm going with Jerry Falwell. I'm going with the 70s, moral majority.
No.
No?
No, because I think that part of the problem is that we didn't and still haven't fully understood. I've tried year after year to articulate it, but people don't see it. The fact that the beginning is more than half the whole means that the premise you start from affects more than half of the consequences that you're going to have to deal with.
Oh, got it, okay.
And we started from a premise in America that was actually a good, solid, righteous sort of premise. It acknowledged God, which is very important, and it listed among the key things.
We're talking about the Declaration.
Well, stop stealing my thunder.
I feel like I'm interviewing Bill Cosby.
But the truth is, because you have to get there by reminding yourself, the word, if you say the Declaration, it means a certain thing to people. I want to be clear about what I'm talking about before they jump into the fray with their minds and make the Declaration mean what it means today, which is nothing. Do you understand what I'm saying? Nothing. You say the word Declaration of Independence, and immediately people think of two things: equality, freedom. And the Declaration isn't in the first instance about equality and freedom. The Declaration in the first instance is about God and right. And God, because the Declaration is where the founders acknowledged God. And people say, how can you bring God into our politics? And I say, we'd have no politics if you don't acknowledge God. So if you misunderstand that beginning, then you're going to misunderstand everything else. You're actually going to misunderstand the fact that when I am dealing with the right to life, I'm not just dealing with the right to life. See? I'm dealing with something that is the foundation of the whole of American life, the whole way of life we have, and the whole moral character required to sustain that life. And I've always tried to get this across to pro-lifers and everybody else. The issue of life is not a little issue over here that we're concerned about. Well, some other people are concerned about what's happening with the energy crisis, and other people are concerned about what's going on in the Ukraine, and everybody has their concerns, and then we have to kind of negotiate whose concerns are going to be addressed and so forth. No, because that's like saying that people who are arguing over what bedspread we should put on the bed, and others who are arguing about where we should arrange the furniture in the dining room, that their concern is as important as the people who just discovered that there are folks downstairs about to blow up the basement and the whole house is going to collapse. Okay? You say it that way and you realize that some things are more important than other things. And life being connected with the whole foundational basis of everything we hold to be decent and right and good in our way of life is not an issue like any other. And when you carry it to such an extreme that you are explicitly denying both the premise and the authority who laid down the premise, both of which are indispensable for maintaining our ability to put into practice the liberty and self-government and economic enterprise that we take so seriously, all of it becomes impossible.
For the sake of the listener, the viewer, your point is the centrality of God in the foundation of the Republic, that our rights come from God, that the Declaration of Independence is a theocentric document, and that the American experiment in self-government, as we saw it, does not even exist without God.
Well, that's true, and also without a certain understanding, because these days, I don't know, the bad guys, as I call them, the folks who are doing everything possible to try to confuse us on the issue of the relationship between God and our citizenship and our liberty and our justice, they play on in various ways. You can see it in the popular culture, trying to get folks, when you hear the word God, you think of, I don't know, old man with a flowing beard. You hear the word God, you think of somebody saying, don't do this, don't do that, don't do the other thing, and so forth and so on. No, the Declaration started, and this I don't think was an accident. See, the Declaration begins where the Bible begins. What's the first thing we're told in the Bible, from the very first page? What's the first thing we are told about
questions.
God? No, it's not a trick question, it's an obvious question. In the beginning, right, God, what?
Made heaven and earth.
Created, made. The first attribute of God, the first activity of God listed in the Scripture is creation.